if you wax philosophical, as surfers tend to do,
Yes.
and physicists tend to do, physics is natural philosophy.
Yeah.
It's mathematical philosophizing about nature. And the reason we hit upon mathematics is it is the ultimate tool of reason, of rationality.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the Buoy Report podcast, where we are documenting waves of energy, from big waves to renewable energy waves, thought waves, and mind waves. Hope you enjoy. Aloha. Carry on. Carry on. Carry on. Garret, sir, thank you for coming to my house. All right, so it's December 15th. December 15th. We're peak winter up at my house in Kula. Hopefully no sirens go by. And that's the only downside of recording on the side of a highway.
That's very organic.
Yes, so DIY. So thank you for coming by. I've been you've been on my radar for a while since I saw your TED Talk. Eve turned me on to your TED Talk a while back,
cool.
and I've been developing my little, my theory of what would you call it? Just paying attention to the world with energy passing around us, and whether it's surfing or renewable energy. And you were one of the more critical thinking people on this island. So
thanks.
When I was ready, I've been holding back on the ping. And
it's always been amazing to me that there aren't more smart people on this island, because it's such a beautiful place and such a wonderful place to live that I would think people would be out here clutching to it like a precious jewel. And the people who are here are, but people seem to be locked into where they are.
So let's do a little brief intro for you. So people probably new to hearing your name. Just a little brief intro to you and how you came to this beautiful place of Maui, and what brought you to just sitting up here in Kula today, I guess.
As so many Howleys here, I started out in California and did a first couple trips to Hawaii, which I'd always dreamed about going to.
Yep.
And came out here and it was just freaking ridiculously beautiful. And I was just learning how to surf.
Okay.
And surfing here is just spectacular.
Yeah.
It handed me in my ass so many times.
That's surfing in general. Just don't feel like a Lone Ranger.
Got off the jet at 18, drove the rental car immediately to Sunset Beach and paddled out on my 6-foot board and just got destroyed over and over again. But fell in love with these islands.
Okay.
Went back to finish up school in California.
Okay. Where'd you do your studies?
I did undergrad at UCLA and then graduate school in UC San Diego.
Okay.
I got in other places, but San Diego had the best surf.
Yep.
And offered me the most money. So
San Diego State over here as well.
Yeah. So I was living in a beach house in La Jolla.
Okay.
I just didn't want to leave. Right there at Windansea. And it was like.
Were you on the surf team? Did you have the key to Blacks at least?
I did not.
Okay.
I did not have a key to Blacks. No, I like the La Jolla Reefs more than Blacks.
Okay.
I've never really liked beach breaks because I just duck diving through beach break over and over and over again and getting pounded back. It's so freaking frustrating. I love having a channel.
Yeah. My good friend Steven Jenkins took me out to OB for my first time, Ocean Beach in San Francisco.
Yeah. Oh God, that place is just punishment.
And
it's punishment.
They thought it was really funny to bring the Hawaiian out to this ice cold beach break, and I pretty much did a mile down the beach before I even popped out. And I was so determined not to get out, and they knew the little intricacies. They slipped out, and I missed the window.
The right current to get in, to get out there. Oh man, yeah. No, my hat's off to those guys. They, cold water, big wave. I'm a wuss. I hate that much rubber. I like being here naked, surfing happy.
Okay, so North Shore, Sunset Beach, and then Maui came on the horizon?
I went all the islands, Kauai, which has amazing surf. But I went through school because I also, I love surfing.
Yep.
I love the immersion in nature you get from it. But I'm a geek. and I'm very mathematically minded.
Yep.
And I really love puzzle solving and figuring things out. And when through physics I learned that mathematics describes our universe,
okay,
and like it's the secret language underlying how everything works around us. It was like, but that we don't have everything figured out yet.
Mm-hmm.
It was like someone left the best puzzle in the universe sitting on my living room table. I can't not play with it. I can't not try to figure out what this thing is that we are living in. And it's a beautiful mathematical object that's revealed itself to us in many ways, but in some ways it's still mysterious. So it's very captivating for me, and that pulls me in. So I went to school to study as much as I could, getting after it. Mm-hmm. Also, I like building fun stuff. So I actually started out aerospace engineering, but then got more and more romantically entranced by this mathematical puzzle, and got more and more into physics and fundamental problems in physics.
What was the most attractive puzzle that just grabbed at there? I mean, and there's a lot of different directions I think physics goes in, right? If I understand that.
Yes. Let me know if this gets too technical.
Okay. I'll do my best.
All right. When you are... So I love using mathematics to understand the universe.
Yeah.
And the most successful application of beautiful mathematics to understanding our universe is Einstein's theory of general relativity.
Okay.
It describes gravity, the force of gravity, which attracts all these planetary bodies, also keeping us on the ground, actually acts via the curvature of space-time itself. So that's described mathematically as a curving four-dimensional space-time surface.
Okay.
So the three dimensions of space curve, but time itself also curves around massive bodies. And that's actually what causes things that are trying to go straight. The straightest they can go ends up being a curve right down towards the center of mass of whatever it's close to. Okay? And that's due to space-time curvature. And it's a very elegant description in terms of the geometry of that curving space-time. Right? You can describe that by distances on the space-time and how those distances change as you move through it. Because it's not just, if you have like 3 yardsticks, right? You think of that as wherever I move these 3 yardsticks, that's going to be the same in space. But in a strong gravitational field, that's not the case.
The yardstick starts bending?
Yeah, it starts bending, changing. As it's moving, they change length.
Does the scale of that yardstick change?
Yeah, as it moves, it changes. Right? If a yardstick starts moving close to the speed of light in some direction, it shrinks in that direction. And it's not like, oh yeah, that's just like, it's not really shrunk. No, like if there was a doorway and it's also going sideways as it's going this way, it could fit through a skinnier doorway. Right? So it really is shrinking. It's called a Lorentz contraction.
Okay.
After the mathematician who first described it mathematically. So it's just a beautiful geometric description of a very fundamental aspect of reality, right? But then you start looking at the other forces, and those forces are also described geometrically. So you have electromagnetism, right? Which you're intimately familiar with.
Yep.
It's
Yes.
bread and butter and soul.
Yes.
But also there's the weak force, which consists of, it's like electromagnetism times 3.
Okay.
Right? Because there are 3 weak force particles, the same way as the photon is an electromagnetic particle. All right? And then there's also the strong force that has 8 photon-like things. And all these things correspond to different geometries twisting around space-time. So the photon is just a circle twisting around space-time. So it's in a sense, it's a 5th dimension or a 4th dimension of space that twists around the dimensions we can move in. Okay, but and how that twists, that's how light is propagating through our space. And each of these other things corresponds to a different shape. Like the weak force corresponds like a little 3-dimensional sphere.
Okay.
And and the strong force is a more complicated 8-dimensional thing. And all these things twist as they move over space-time, and it's this beautiful entwined geometry, and that describes all the forces, which is wonderful. And then you get to matter. And matter's like, well, no, that's different. It interacts with these forces, but really you describe that as a matrix, a column in a matrix that gets acted on by these other forces. And I'm like, the hell is that? That's not geometric. The universe is described by this geometry. Why is not matter described in a similar geometric way? Mm-hmm. And it's not like some weird physics, some weird top quark or something that doesn't fit. It's like, no, like electrons are not described the same way curving space-time geometry is described. The forces are, but the matter it didn't match up. And this universe is just one thing, right? Mm-hmm. To me, it's one mathematically describable object, right? We just don't know the full mathematical description yet, which is an amazing time to be alive.
Is it they don't know the entire equation, or they don't know the entire language of that?
There are parts of it we can't explain. So there are things we have access to experimentally, like the precise values of many of these masses for these particles. And the collection of the hundreds of particle states that can be created. We don't know why nature has chosen these states. Mm-hmm. We don't know what's special about them entirely. We know some things that are special about them. There are tons of clues on the ground. Right? So there are all sorts of clues to this puzzle. But we just don't know. But the biggest driving mystery to me when I was in graduate school is there a geometric description for matter? Is there just the same sort of geometric description of high-dimensional shapes twisting around in space-time that could apply to describe things like electrons or quarks or neutrinos? All right? It seems like they should be, and it seems like it has to be if it's just one mathematical object. And I played with that for, about 8 years. This idea of how to describe it as one big thing. I had everything assembled in a big matrix, and it looked like it wanted to be one thing, but it looked like an algebraic object I'd never seen before. And that was like in 2006 or so. And it was impressive enough as a mathematical structure, I was able to get a grant to study it. So I got private grant funding from this organization that wanted to fund unusual fundamental ideas in physics. And I had one. So they funded me. I quit my teaching job at UH Maui to work on this full time. And after about a year, I discovered that this structure I had assembled actually matched this beautiful structure called the E8 Lie group.
Yep.
And it turns out that that mathematics sort of naturally produces out of nothing, just playing with consistent mathematical structures. These structures called Lie groups, which describe these twists of geometry. It's like all the different knots you could make.
Gotcha.
But it's all the different knots you can make with high-dimensional geometry. It's very similar. But it's like any alien civilization is going to have the same mathematics, right? They're going to discover the same mathematical objects. They're like these mathematical jewels that exist that any mathematician that works on this for a couple hundred years is say, well, these things are special. All right, and these are the exceptional Lie groups among all the Lie groups. So like the other Lie groups all have to do with rotations in different spaces, but there are these 5 exceptional cases. And the coolest thing about these 5 exceptional cases is as part of their structure, as part of their geometry, they describe things like electrons and quarks in terms of how those interact with the other geometric elements. And that was just mind blowing. When I saw that, I was like, that's it. That's the geometric description I was looking for. That's geometric in the same way that Einstein's description of space-time is geometric. And I think that has to be right. Something about this is right. There are parts of it that don't work perfectly.
Oh my God. Fail! Airplane mode. Sorry. That was me.
That's okay. That was probably for the best. This is way geeky.
So I was, full disclosure, almost getting hot flashes, taking me back to Calculus 2 in college at UH Manoa. That was as far as I got my math career, and I barely got through first calculus, and then I took this Calculus 2 course, and he was taught by this exchange student that had really horrible English, and he was going so fast, and I'm sorry. I couldn't get it, and the course was going so quick, and I was like, I'm done. I'm going. Well, and I pulled. That was like, and then I ended up like going back and going through some Khan Academy videos, and I kind of started trying to teach myself on there. I was like, oh, there it was. I kind of got what he was. I remember the bulb came back, and it was just really having to think in those 3 dimensionals and adding fourths
Yeah.
And he just, the way he was explaining it just was not.
Yeah, I mean,
he's like, you know.
Only if you're a mathematical physicist are you ever going to encounter the exceptional groups. Mm-hmm. You're not going to see them in accounting. You're not going to see them in business. You're not going to see them in anything at all practical in daily human life. They are mathematical jewels that are appreciated by mathematicians. A friend of mine describes it as mathematicians being like music composers that are composing beautiful pieces of music that draw off previous work, but the music never gets played. They just pass around their papers and appreciate the compositions. You know? It's like, that's how mathematics works. But you can appreciate the beauty of the music by reading and understanding it.
When you look at a formula on the paper, can you just almost see it, like your gift of reading music or math? You can see it. You can see it three-dimensionally in your brain.
It's the same way a musician can look at a score and hear it.
Yeah.
Right. They get a feeling for it just by looking at it. The same way when I look at an equation, it's similar and connected to all these other equations I've seen, so I can get an idea for its structure, what the interplay, what the base pieces are, all the composition, everything. Just from looking at an equation, you draw on all your past knowledge and experience to understand what that's saying and the implications of it, including what it's describing abstractly. Yeah, which paints a whole different pretty picture in your mind.
One of the best expressions of math I've kind of seen was when I was learning guitar scales. Yeah. And I sat down with this savant and he showed me this book of all the different scales, and it was just the patterns going exponentially X, Y, and Z of those scales. And he's like, yeah, I can just tap in. You pick me a spot anywhere and I know the scale X, Y, and Z of that point. Yeah. And it was really beautiful the way he explained it. And he was one of those guys that can just, he doesn't even read music. He just hears it and knows how to play it.
Well, he lives in that space.
Yeah.
Yeah. In the same way I live in the space of equations. Yeah.
So that 8 is your foundation for that TED Talk that you shared?
Yeah. So that basically I took that observation of the match of elementary particle structure into the E8 Lie group. And I used it to present some of the beauty that is already known in particle physics based on that matching, which is not at all controversial. But the matching itself is controversial because, like I said, some things don't work. And even after over 10 years of work on it still don't work. So there's promise to it, but there are problems with it.
Right. So where does energy fall in all that stuff?
All these things. So when you're talking about these geometries twisting over space-time, the twisting over space-time is a propagating wave. All right? Mm-hmm. So if you're talking about a photon, that's just one wrapped up dimension propagating through our 3 dimensions of space and 1 of time. And how it twists around space is the magnetic field, and how it twists in time is the electric field. And how fast it's spinning in time, right? That's its frequency, right? And wavelength is the change in space, right? And that's your electromagnetic wave right there. And each individual photon, each quantized excitation of this geometry, it has an energy proportional to its frequency, right? But then you get like 10 to the 20 of these photons going somewhere at once, and then you're talking about a watt of power cruising along in that wave.
Okay, so when I was researching, looking up you, everything that was always popping up was physicist, mathematician, surf bum. Was a recurring theme. Right. Living in a van, surfing.
I did that.
Loves the kite surf.
With my girlfriend in Maui for a year. Yeah. It was
so how do you see your math brain and your math lens of looking at the universe overlapping surfing and energy and waves and do you look at the ocean and you're counting ripples?
Well, I mean, physicists see me as a pretty bad physicist, but a decent, mathematician and a good surfer. Yeah. Surfers see me as kind of a bad surfer, but a really good physicist and
Hence why I came knocking.
So yeah, I'm a multi-class character, which means I'm not fantastically good at anything. Mm-hmm. I like to think I'm a competent surfer. Mm-hmm. I'm a competent physicist. borderline competent mathematician.
You posted a pretty big wave the other day at sunset.
Yeah, it's fun. It's been really game-changing to try these floaty suits.
Yeah.
I didn't go so far as to get the CO2 vest. I actually liked having one of those Patagonia short john, just with this flotation there with you all the time. And it was better because I just get drilled over and over and over again.
There's no downside.
I don't have to be inflating all the time.
To using those, I like it'll. It's just a little positive buoyancy goes a long way.
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, once you're on a board that's too big to duck dive anyway, why not have some float on you?
Yeah. We're all using them at Pipeline. There's pretty much half the dudes at the peak are wearing them, more or less.
I have no business at Pipeline. I mean, when I was young, I tried it, got my ass handed to me, and I couldn't even do a decent backside pig dog. I'm regular foot, so I couldn't do backside pig dog until I was like in my 40s, doing it at Cloud Break until I finally got it decent. But Pipeline is just, that's too heavy, breaks too fast. I don't think I can dial that in. If nobody else is there, but there's always 100 guys in that lineup. That's good.
The club of speaking of clubs and surf clubs and all that, the club of how many people in the world are doing what you're doing and
in physics?
Yeah, like what's like.
I mean, in physics and surfing, none.
Okay, how about just physics? Let's start there. And
in physics, they're probably about 20 years ago. There were maybe 2 or 3 people working in this general direction.
Okay.
They didn't have the same background in differential geometry, but they had similar algebraic tools in that they were interested in the algebra of elementary particle physics and how it held together as a whole.
Okay. Then
over the past 15 years, now it's probably up to about, I'd say 30 or 40 people working in the same area that I am.
Mm-hmm. With 7 billion people in the world. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Pretty specialized, pretty unique. Okay. I just wanted to call out how special it is.
There are only maybe about 4,000 practicing theoretical physicists.
Yeah. Okay.
Theoretical high energy physicists, I should further specify. Yeah. Particle physicists. Theoretical particle physicists.
And when you, just a small brain asking a big question, like when you're describing, it's on the infinitely small macro or micro levels of energy, but can those things
not infinitely small?
Okay, but on a very small proton electron level, can those things be expressed on a very macro, infinitely large level? Like if you pull back on the universe, and are those?
You can't just zoom in. I mean, like we're used to on the human scale. It's like
this one of the things that just trips me out in my brain that keeps me like think infinitely small, think infinitely large, and that just like will make.
No, that's too mind bending.
Yeah.
Also, the universe literally won't let you do it.
Okay.
There are hard limits.
Okay.
On how big you can go and how small you can go.
There is?
Yes.
Okay. So that's a wrong, infinitely small.
And as humans, we're around in the middle.
Okay.
All right? And what I mean by that is if you go down, so you can start zooming in. So, we have objects banging around, right? We bang into ourselves, we bang into tables, chairs, each other.
Yep.
And everything's solid and sort of careens off each other like billiard balls, and we also have these forces like light bouncing around each other, which are waves, but okay, you got billiard balls, the waves, that's pretty much it, right? Classical physics. You can go down like that, you can zoom in like times 10, times 10, times 10, times 10, times 10, times 10, wait, now things get different. You zoom in 10 times, times 10 times. Now things aren't looking like billiard balls anymore. Turns out the matter is more distributed, right?
Yes.
So an electron is not just a little billiard ball orbiting the billiard ball that is the atomic nucleus, right? An electron, when you get down there and look at it, it actually sort of occupies a wave around the atomic nucleus.
Here it comes again. There's a wave.
Waves everywhere. Yeah, it's all quantized, and at that scale, right? So on our classical scale, it's all classical waves, right? Things that have smooth amplitude profiles, everything's smooth when you talk about waves. But when you get down to like the scale of atoms, then you have to deal with quantization, which is pretty strange. And it's pretty mind-bending what happens with quantization. Things can interfere with each other. Like an electron isn't just at one place. It literally is not at just one place.
You can never fix it.
You can't. It would take an infinite amount of energy to fix an electron in just one location. Okay? And as soon as you did, it would go flying out like if you squeezed a pumpkin seed insanely hard.
Okay.
Right? It's there's a balance between knowing how constrained an object is and how fast it's moving. Right? So either it's moving really fast and you don't know how fast it's moving, but you're pretty sure you know where it is, or you know what it is, you know where it is, but you have no idea how fast it's moving. But you shouldn't use that to try to get out of a speeding ticket because it won't work. That's
like this this computer's about to crash with too many apps open.
Yeah. Close some tabs.
I'm sorry. I gotta close some shit. I just hear it getting louder and louder.
And you got a hovercraft over there.
All right, sorry about that. Okay.
Hopefully this can handle it.
Okay, so like we got 3 other redundancies. So
we put ice cubes under it.
Okay, pumpkin seed, squeezing it, trying to.
Yeah.
So.
So when you get down to the scale of atoms, the particles start looking like waves, and they're no billiard balls. Everything ends up being waves, but they're not just like cloth fabric waving waves, right? It's not just like waves interacting with waves all waving. They're quantized, right? Which means they can have discrete excitations.
Okay.
All right. Which is totally foreign to our human experience. All right. There's nothing like this on the human scale. It's just when physicists went smaller and smaller and smaller and zooming in further and further, this is the weirdness they hit down low. And we kept going, right? So we go down another 10 factors of 10. And as far as we can tell, people start to say, well, maybe these particles that are forming these quantized waves, maybe they have some internal structure. As far as we've been able to tell, they don't. But that's where string theory started playing. Like down at 10 to the minus 30 meters. Right?
So is that... Okay, so so that's more of a visibility of the scene where how small you can go.
Well, it's not just visibility. It's like, what is stuff?
Gotcha. And what was like, I always remember, I'm going back to my math teacher going, okay, divide by 2 infinitely. And you can't. So you're telling me there's a hard stop.
Yeah, we hit hard stop. So that's why we have particle accelerators. Just try to get down smaller. Like what's going down? What's this made of if we go even smaller?
Okay.
And what are we know? So by having particle accelerators, we found out that protons and neutrons that are in atomic nuclei. So at first, like finding out that matter is made of atoms, that was pretty cool, right?
Yep.
But then then we found out that atoms actually have nuclei with electrons orbiting them, and then nuclei are made of protons and neutrons. But then it took a while to figure out, and it was only in the 60s and 70s that we figured out that protons and neutrons are made of these other particles called quarks. And I actually had the guy, James Borkin, who was running SLAC, trying to find them in the 70s. Actually, came out to visit here in Maui at the Pacific Science Institute for a while. So that was pretty cool. He's a great guy. He also has an interest in theoretical work quite a bit.
Gotcha.
But that's actually fairly recent. Recent enough that people are still alive who worked on it. And but now we're trying to go lower than quarks, but we haven't been able to. So quarks, electrons, neutrinos have been the fundamental constituents of matter since the 70s, right? My whole life.
Yep.
We finally have now experimental confirmation that we also have a Higgs field, which is what everything interacts with to get its mass. So we are making progress. It's just been really slow progress in particle physics since the 70s.
Well, get on it, man.
Well, we need more money.
More brain power, more computational power?
No, literally more electrical power and engineering to make these bit larger particle accelerators. Because you need, you can't just turn a dial and go another factor of 10 deeper.
Interesting.
All right, you need a factor of 10 more energy. All right, and you need to concentrate that factor of 10 more energy very
Takes
precisely.
energy to understand energy.
Yeah.
Wow.
To go deeper. So it's like you have a microscope, right? And you're zooming in the microscope and zooming in the microscope. If you zoom in the microscope enough, you don't have enough light. You're zoomed in so much that you can't bounce enough light off that thing to see it.
Interesting. Okay.
All right. So you're going so far with a microscope that you need to collide a huge amount of energy just to light up the scene.
Oh shit. Okay.
And that's basically what a particle accelerator is.
And that's where the people that don't understand it are so afraid of it. And they're like,
yeah, because you create black holes for a little while. And people are scared of black holes. But they shouldn't be. They're mostly harmless.
That's Hollywood.
Yeah. Well, because they, Hawking figured out, they evaporate.
Interesting.
Yeah, so what this means is if you concentrate enough energy tightly enough, that'll curve space-time around it, that nothing can escape that concentration of energy. And it pulls itself in and pulls everything else into it too. And you're worried everything else is going to get sucked in, but that's not what happens. And people are worried, it's like, well, this might create black holes. It's like, well, the thing is, these high energy particles, like hundreds of times the energy of what we're creating in particle accelerators, are created in natural stellar events. Like things falling into black holes in the middle of our galaxy, right? That emits hugely powerful cosmic rays, right? And these cosmic rays are careening all through the galaxy, all through our universe, banging into things, including our Earth, including the moon. And I bring up the moon because our Earth, it sort of has this atmosphere. So it's like, oh, well, they could be banging off these soft things, but if you bang a cosmic ray into metal or something hard, maybe that's going to create a black hole and blow us up. No, they're careening into the moon too. So we know these collisions are happening. We just don't know exactly where. If we knew exactly where, we could get our particle detector there and do our experiment there, but we don't know where they're going to hit. A collider is about knowing exactly where that thing's going to hit so you can concentrate on it. But we know that these high energy cosmic rays are not destroying the moon when they hit it. So it's completely, I'll say it's perfectly safe. Because we know what's happening in nature.
Gotcha.
If we start messing with stuff that is not happening in nature, you should, think about that before you mess with it, right? But we have all this stuff we can play with that can give us access to different natural skills that we can't as humans have access to, but we can with our equipment. But the universe is like a big playground and a puzzle at the same time, and it's a great adventure to try to figure it out.
Awesome, man. Good on you.
And then we have the other side. So on the if you zoom out,
yes,
right,
infinitely large.
Yeah, you can't go infinitely large because it turns out, and we discovered this only in this century, like in the 21st century, we figured out that the universe is actually accelerating in its expansion. So we used to think that, okay, the universe is expanding, right? It has a bunch of matter in it. That matter is all rushing away from itself. But gravity, that stuff will probably turn around and maybe we'll have a big crunch. It'll all come back crashing up. We'll have the inverse of a big bang, right? But we actually looked out with radio telescopes and found out that no, actually not only is the matter rushing away, that it's rushing away at an increasingly accelerating rate. So the universe, the fabric of the universe itself is not only expanding, it's expanding at an accelerating rate. Right? It's like an accelerating explosion going on. Right? And as the universe, and this is the only place that energy comes from and is not merely transferred. Right? Everything else, everything we do, energy, we're just channeling one form of energy from one waveform to another.
Yes.
Right? It's going from the energy in a photon, comes in, hits an atom, and that excites the wave of the electron, which gets popped in a higher level, and then pops back down again. And it's all interacting quantized waves. Everything, right? Except we have this weirdness where space-time itself is expanding at an accelerating rate. And that this can be described with general relativity. You fudge by putting in a constant to drive this acceleration, but it fits in the equation, it's fine. And with this, what they call dark energy, as the space of the universe expands, more energy fills in to the expanding space, driving the expansion further. And so this is the only place energy comes from for free. It sort of fills in space as it expands.
Okay.
Everything else, energy is conserved. So whenever anything happens within a room, right, energy is always conserved that way. It's only on the scale of the universe itself that it's not. But if the universe is increasing its acceleration as you go further and further out, and so things are increasing in the speed at which they're receding from each other, you go out far enough, at some point, it's going faster than the speed of light away from you. Right? And that means nothing from that can ever get to you, and you can never get to it. All right? So that puts an outer limit on what you have access to going out. There might be other copies of you. So if the universe is infinite in spatial extent, and as far as we can tell, it is geometrically, it seems to be, space itself actually appears to be flat, approximately. And unless it's wrapped around in some weird, very large donut, right? Mm-hmm. It very probably goes on forever, which means there are very probably other versions of you in other pockets of this infinite spatial extent universe, because weird things happen with probability when you put infinities in it. Right? When you put infinities in probability calculations, things that are very unlikely become certainties.
Wait, repeat that?
When you put infinities in probability calculations for things that are very unlikely.
For things that are very unlikely become certainties.
Yeah.
All right.
It's like,
I'm not going to sleep tonight, thank you.
Yeah. It's like, what are the odds that we have the same birthday in an infinite universe?
So we've had this conversation already before. This is how.
Yeah, and that's just our classical universe. There's also the quantum multiverse.
Yeah.
So you have our playground is finite, both at the external extent and in how far down we can go.
Gotcha.
So some people find that limiting, but these scales are mind-bogglingly huge, right? It's like a lot of people come visit Maui and they're like, I get island fever, I feel confined, right? And I'm like, you just start swimming. You got the ocean, you start swimming. You're never going to hit anything else while you're swimming. It's infinite as far as you're concerned. Mm-hmm. Same thing, space, we can go out into space. As far as we are concerned, it's infinite. Mm-hmm. It's just astronomers, they tend not always to like things on Earth so much, so they're always looking out there further, what's out there further. And so they've been able to figure out pretty darn far what's going on.
Gotcha. So let's try to keep up. Thank you. Let's bring it to a scale I kind of understand a little more. And 200 amp to 400 amp services and home services, electrical and renewable energy and solar and climate change and all those good things. Yeah. So let's talk about that. We sat down, was it 2 weeks ago, and we had kind of a little introduction, got to know each other, and it was so refreshing to hear a confirmation from you on one was the climate change side of things, that it's real, and just we need to stop burning shit, because there's so much
dumping in carbon into the atmosphere.
There's so much FUD out there in the world. You start believing the FUD that people are like, no, it's okay, and then
it's politically motivated from two directions.
Yes, and
first of all, there's a ton of money in the petroleum industry. Yep. There's just a ton of money in energy resource exploitation, coal, oil. Natural gas, all that stuff.
It was so refreshing.
So that there's a huge PR campaign funded by that money to say, no, climate change isn't real because we're making it. It's like,
So the other part is like, what's the net zero? What's the cost of doing nothing? And people, I know solar right now, like the technology we have isn't perfect, but I think it's still better than doing nothing.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's still an environmental cost for solar and manufacturing the panels.
Yes. We drive diesel trucks to the job site, and there's cardboard and trash that comes off that job site.
But the sun is a giant functioning fusion reactor at a safe enough distance for us that we can take advantage of the energy from it without us killing us for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For the record, you have solar in your house, so
I do.
Good on you. Yeah. You did the mental math, and it was a net positive.
It's not hard math.
Okay, thank you.
No, we have, what, if you put out a square meter in Hawaii, that gets, at high noon, that gets like 1,000 watts of solar energy from the sun. And solar panels are, what, like 20% efficient now? Mm-hmm. So you're getting 200 watts.
I think they're higher than that now.
You're over 20% now?
We're about 22 on the the best.
Nice.
22 and a half, I think.
That's really good.
So they're getting there. They're chipping away at it.
Yeah.
It's aesthetics every time they get something new.
Yeah. So you put a 1 square meter panel on your roof here, and you get 200 watts out of it that you can use to power your life.
Yeah.
And store in a battery and use to charge your car, and it just turns out that, that's enough such that, for every human and their energy needs, their reasonable energy needs, wouldn't it be great if humans just tended to have something over their head that was catching the sunlight and stopping it, and then they could use that sunlight to power their lives? And if they just so happened that a single family used about as much power as roof that they had over their head on which they could put solar panels to totally power their lives. Oh, hey, we have that, roofs. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you put solar panels on roofs, you power the life, everything you want to do in that family, including transportation.
Yep.
And the math works out.
Nature's already figured this out.
Yeah.
Plants have leaves. They're solar panels, and they twist during the day of the sun.
Yeah, it's as you say, it's human beings copying nature to great success.
Yes.
And this is just another case of that. Nature tends not to dig stuff up out of the ground and burn it for energy. Mm-hmm. That's a very dark strategy that doesn't last more than a couple hundred years, as we're finding out.
Yeah.
So we want to stop doing that.
There's a finite amount of that stuff to burn.
Yeah. So, but solar is going to do more than this, just that.
Okay.
Solar is going to do more than just provide all the energy that people need, because people also need fresh drinking water, which is also a limited resource. Mm-hmm. And we can't drink ocean water. But if you pump enough energy into ocean water, you can, through reverse osmosis, you can separate fresh water from salt water and dump the salt water back in the ocean, and then you have usable fresh water. And that just takes energy.
Yep.
If you have enough solar power generating energy, you can do that. And eventually, solar gets cheap enough that you can generate fresh water cheaper than you can collect it.
Interesting.
That's in the far future.
Yeah, but
that might be 20 years.
But it's coming, right? And it's
already being done.
The computational power is coming. That's going to be able. What's the law that the computation power keeps doubling, and which is Moore's law, which helps the manufacturing and the management of that energy and all that.
Also, the economy of scale.
Economies of scale.
The more of something you make, the cheaper it is to make it.
Yes, and the more panels we get out there, it's just the better it is in the long run. So
it is the way humanity has to go over the next 100 years, and the faster you can get there, the better it'll be for the planet.
Do you think so? There's you brought up two things then we can go in sequence of those. Fusion. It's in the news right now.
You can also make portable suns.
Yes. It's in the news right now, and they basically, that was, I guess, the first time it was net positive.
On the energy production from the energy.
Because it takes so much energy to make a fusion reaction.
Their math was a little funny.
Okay, so there wasn't?
No, the math was like this. All right. You have a pellet, right?
Okay.
You shine, say, a megawatt of electromagnetic energy in terms of highly focused laser beams onto that pellet. You heat it up to over 5,000 degrees centigrade or something, and that's enough that the nuclei of the atoms can get over their natural electric repulsion until the strong force kicks in and binds them. And then that releases a bunch of energy. And that's nuclear fusion. right? And the good thing about it is there's no fast particles being kicked out, right?
Okay, on a dumb down, I'm just imagining two big magnets in your hand, and you keep pushing them. If you can really push them together, that's the nuclei fusing.
Yeah. So it's as if you have two magnets that are repelling until you get them super close, and then they pull together really hard.
Okay.
That's nuclear fusion. All right.
And the release of that energy when they're fusing.
Yeah, and then once they have that energy, then they bounce around really fast, and that heats them up. Okay, because that energy has to go somewhere. Energy is always conserved locally. So the energy has to go into, since now they're a bound object, it has to go into its speed, right? Into its kinetic energy, all right? So, and that's what heats up the material. And then that gets hotter and hotter. And so what they found is that, if they put a megawatt into this pellet, heat it up enough that it started fusing, and the fusion energy that came out was like 1.2 megawatts or something, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, we've produced more energy than we put in. It's like, well, okay, we put in a megawatt of extremely well-focused, coherent laser light.
Sorry, mate, hold on.
So, yes, they did shine in, like, say, imagine putting in a megawatt of highly focused, coherent laser light at this pellet. And it's like, and you got 1.2 out because the thing was fusing and creating energy from the fusion. So you got more energy out than you put in with these laser beams. And it's like, well, there are two questions. One is, were we able to catch the energy that came out and use it? No. What you'd have to do is you'd have to use that to like heat up water or something and produce it to steam, then run the steam through turbines to generate power. And that's maybe 5-10% efficient.
Yep.
Right? All right. So, yeah, that's a cut of, 5 or 10%. Even in theory.
Yep.
They didn't try to do that. The other thing is how much power does it take to make these megawatt coherent laser watt? Oh, about 100 megawatts. Yeah. It's
Gotcha.
not very efficient to convert energy in some form into a coherent, highly focused laser light.
So that PR that went across social media was really just a funding stunt?
Yes. Nuclear fusion certainly deserves funding, but the kind of fusion that was done, although it's extremely scientifically productive and it's worth the media it got, it's worth it because we have a star in a box. We created a star in a box.
Wow.
That's fucking fantastic. We created a star in a box. All right,
Gotcha.
But we've done that before. But it's cool that we got a star in a box with actual energy coming out of it. In theory, there's more than's going in. Okay?
Okay, my mind was like, okay, well, how do we... Can you run an engine off of it?
Mr. Fusion, yeah, you just put the stuff...
Iron Man puts it in his chest.
Right. So the fusion reactors that will work, it's going to have to work not with laser light, because laser light is very energetically expensive to produce. So that's called inertial confinement fusion. You're confining the pellet that's at a high temperature. Yep. The reason that's not just blasting out against the walls is because you're shooting this laser light in at it in a very concentrated pattern that confines it. The light itself has a momentum that's pushing against it. And that confines the pellet. But the problem is it's very expensive to produce that laser light. So that's not the most promising fusion method for producing energy. The most promising confinement method for producing energy from fusion is a magnetic field. So you make a magnetic field basically in a solenoid, turned around, matched up to itself. And you have what's called a tokamak, right? You run enough current through that coil, or you use basically superconducting coil, even better, to create a strong enough magnetic field. And for the matter, you use nuclei, which are ionized, so they're charged particles, so they can be confined if they're moving. So you have these moving particles going around in a ring, and you use this magnetic field to confine it, right? And then you pump energy into it to heat it. until you get that up to about 5,000 C and ignite it, and then you try to capture and then you cool the walls. All right, so you have cold water on the walls to catch the energy, and you run that and power it, and this will work eventually. But a couple things get you. One is the insanely strong magnetic fields you need to confine this thing, and two is the insane amount of heat that you're trying to confine.
Gotcha.
So you have also, if this goes
gets out of the box.
It doesn't have to get out of the box. If it goes enough cockeyed that it heats up your superconducting magnet, you're totally screwed, because the magnet's only superconducting below a certain temperature. And if you get that superconducting magnet over a critical temperature, it becomes resistance, the magnetic field collapses, what's called a quench, and your whole thing blows up.
Fun.
Yeah. and lots of equipment is destroyed, and hopefully not too many people.
Are they doing this deep underground?
Oh, no.
Right in broad daylight in Palo Alto?
Yeah.
In Berkeley somewhere?
Oh, yeah. The biggest one, ITER, I don't remember exactly where it is. I think it's somewhere in Europe. They do have a pit.
Okay.
And they have this thing in a pit. But the ITER does not use superconducting magnets because they're super expensive, and there is this risk of a quench. There are other private companies with private funding who are more ambitious. Private funding, VC, tends to be more driven and more risk tolerant than governments and research centers. So these are more risky bets.
Gotcha.
I think, physics-wise, it's going to work. Engineering-wise, it's ridiculously hard. But in the meantime, solar is going to be cheaper, and it might always be cheaper, unless you're in somewhere with no sun. Like you want to, run a high-powered operation in the ocean or in space.
Yeah.
Then fusion is very worthwhile. The cool thing is, in space, you don't technically need full confinement. So if you run a fusion reaction in space, and say you have an opening, you can just let a lot of the heat out the opening, and then you have a very efficient rocket.
Interesting.
So
the vacuum, the cold vacuum of space, essentially.
So if you just put a pellet in there and put enough energy in the pellet and then let it vent out the tailpipe, that's a highly efficient rocket, and that's what rockets will be probably in about 200-300 years.
Interesting.
For interplanetary travel.
Think Elon's going that way already?
He's mostly focused on Mars. But the problem with Mars and colonizing space in general is cosmic rays. So here on Earth, we have this magnetic field around the Earth generated.
We still get sunburn.
Yeah, and we still get cancer. But we're shielded.
Yep.
And you don't have to be shielded by a magnetic field. But Mars, the Moon, they don't have those magnetic fields. Neither do spaceships.
Yep. Typically.
And it's expensive to generate a magnetic field, right? But or nature does it already, and you take advantage of it, as we do.
Yep. As
everything alive on this planet does. That's why we haven't been killed by cosmic rays. We're protected by the planet, which is really kind of wonderful. He is very kind to us. Why we can be here at all. But if we go out into space, we're no longer protected by a magnetic field. So you could get protection, say, from a couple meters of dirt, or like 4 inches of metal, right? Probably don't want 4 inches of metal to build a structure out of that. It's insanely heavy. But probably what they'll do is either build things underground, which is why Elon has a boring company and is making tunnels.
It's all connected.
All right, it's all connected. So you make tunnel cities underground on the Moon or Mars, and then be protected from cosmic rays that way. Or you can make inflatable domes and just bulldoze a couple meters of dirt over them. Probably cheaper.
Interesting.
Cheaper than digging. But I don't know. It's gonna be a hellscape to live in. Either some cold frozen.
There ain't no waves up there anyway, man.
cold frozen hole where you can't breathe the air. No, I'd love to go like paraglide in Jupiter or something. High enough up, the gravity might even be manageable.
So see how big of swells are really coming off that one. What was it, the red eye, the storm?
Yeah, that comes and goes, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's weird.
So let's shift gears to one more point. So
fluid dynamical turbulence is fascinating.
Tom Blake.
Yeah.
So this is his book.
Yeah.
And there's another copy that's sitting in UH Manoa. It's out of print, and it's like I want to go read it one day, but it's the original manuscript of it. Okay. But he has a couple cool lines that kind of is one of the ones that crystallized one of my theories of just kind of trying to recognize patterns of energy and the energy as it gets transferred through the universe. Just input. We're just sitting in a long line of inputs and outputs, right? At the end of the day, and
we have waves of energy from the sun come in, hitting us. That gets converted to all sorts of different forms. And we basically, our lives are converting this energy from one form to another, and how we do it shapes our lives.
Yeah. So
including surfers surfing waves, which is
exactly. So
my favorite way he did it, and probably yours too.
He has a great quote, and I just want to get your thoughts on it. So, to surf, two things have to be in harmony: your position and your momentum. And for this brief ride, he has this God-given energy going for him instead of passing by him. And there's a couple of things. And at the end of the day, it's nature equals God, and and you shared what that philosophy is. I actually dug it up with Spinoza.
Yeah.
So I kind of started going down that rabbit hole last night.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, if you wax philosophical, as surfers tend to do,
yes,
and physicists tend to do. Yeah. Physics is natural philosophy.
Yeah.
It's mathematical philosophizing about nature, and the reason we hit upon mathematics is it is the ultimate tool of reason, of rationality.
Yeah.
So we are immersed in these waves of energy, and we perceive this as the universe around it. What is this? I mean, and we try to understand it rationally. We also try to understand it emotionally. You know, we have all this stuff going on dynamically, everything, you know, and we have our own personal emotional makeups. And it's all chaotic and personally energizing. And what sense can we make of this? And throughout ancient human culture, we have this idea of gods controlling things, like because all this stuff can't just happen. It's and coincidences that happen. All this stuff is too structured to just be random, right? So it's not random. Mm-hmm. So maybe there's some entity controlling it or overseeing it. And we had this, many human cultures have had this idea of some form of gods overseeing. But rationally, if you go looking out for these things, and experimentally at very large distances or very small distances, there's nowhere it's like, well, in this part of our equation, the hand of God comes in and changes things, so this works. It's like, no, there is no such hand, right? If you go into physics, there's no room on either side of those scales for our mythological understanding of these creatures, of our mythological ideas about God or gods. So, but we have this ingrained cultural background and idea of reverence for something beyond human. All right? So if you're a rational thinker, or if you're just a surfer who's also a philosopher who thinks about this stuff a lot, where do you aim that reverence? Well, what you have around you is nature. And nature is what is keeping you happy and what you're immersed in and what you're always playing with and what you love more than anything. And you can the most rational thing to re-aim that reverence for what's sacred at is nature.
Yep.
So that's where, God is nature. That makes perfect sense. Take that reverence we have naturally for something that's superhuman and redirect it towards nature, and that's a perfect fit. And it makes perfect sense. We have nature all around it. It's all powerful as we're concerned. Mm-hmm. We're just a little insignificant speck in this vast universe. So God is nature. It's the simplest rational philosophy that can include God.
Gotcha.
All right, and Spinoza hit this in the 1500s because they had a lot of religious influence. And it's like, how does a rational thinker make sense of God? And Spinoza said, "Oh, God is nature." Right? That's what it is. So this is the way to think of God. Is to think of God as nature. And if you're doing religious studies, do physics. If you're studying nature, you're studying God, right? And this has pluses and minuses, right? So if you're an atheist, as I am, you accept this. It's like, yes, I have a reverence for nature. I hold it in the highest possible regard. It's the holiest thing I know of. Right? I don't know anything more sacred than nature itself. Okay? So if people want to call nature God, totally understand that. The problem is God comes in with a lot of baggage. Right? Most cultures all have their different ideas of God. You bring in God, it's got baggage. Either doesn't want this person having sex with this person, doesn't want this to happen. It's like, no.
All the appendixes in the book.
Most of the books. So even though I accept, God as nature is a perfectly reasonable thing, I don't like all the baggage that the God part comes with.
Gotcha.
Not that the nature part doesn't come with baggage too, she does. Nature's baggage is, we're going to die. All right?
We're going to rest.
Yeah, that's some heavy baggage. I'm not very comfortable with the idea of my own impending mortality. I confront it pretty much daily, often several times daily if the surf is big.
I was going to ask is, how do you confront it?
Yeah. Well, you fight as much as you can. You try to live healthy and well.
Yep.
You try to squeeze as much life as you can into your days.
Yep.
And you try to be nice to people because you realize their lives are short and they're struggling with things.
Yep.
And you also do what you can to extend life as much as you possibly can, both through natural and, if you like, artificial means. Right? So I think far more work should be done at human life extension. It's way, way underfunded and deserves more funding and effort. It's, in a way, it's kind of selfish, which means you kind of expect the boomers to do it. Yeah, I'd expect the boomers to be putting a lot more money into life extension these days. But it's possible that, we'll have some significant life extension breakthrough from the cosmetic industry. They come up with a drug that makes your skin extra nice and look 10 years younger. It's like, oh wait, we're accidentally making people 10 years younger. As a side effect.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
We're moving right along through all these. So let's come back to, we'll stick God out of the equation and what we're discussing, but that being in harmony with waves and what he was talking about. And just, so that kind of comes back to the core question of, I've just been fascinated with all the different patterns of energy transferring from the universe and just trying to just document, or not even document, acknowledge all the different times. You've brought up some amazing ones that I've never even thought of. So the question to you is what it's like a very unique or I think we know it, but you've gone into a really unique or conversion of energy in your life, whether it's the science or just any direction you want to go with that. Because you have a pretty amazing concept of energy and waves. And can I use, just clarification, can waves and energy be interchanged as a word? Or?
Not entirely.
Okay.
Because matter can also hold energy.
Okay.
All right? Every wave has energy.
Gotcha.
Okay, so yes, and that's how energy moves around for the most part.
So waves are how the energy moves.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
But you can have a stationary form of energy in the terms of matter.
Okay.
Matter itself, however, is usually described as a quantized wave of energy. So in quantum field theory, yes, everything is waves. Things get weird when you talk about how particles at rest have masses, and how that mass corresponds to energy. Okay, which it does. So there's a direct conversion you can do between mass and energy. That's how atomic energy works. That's how fusion works. All this is like a conversion between mass and energy, and it's a very strong conversion. A tiny amount of matter corresponds to a huge amount of energy. That's why atomic weapons are so bloody dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's subtle, even though these elementary particles are described by physics as quantized waves of energy. They haven't part of their energy that is attributed to their mass alone, and not just to their propagating momentum. So that part of energy is not entirely wave-like.
Gotcha.
But you have to get pretty mathematical to wrap your head around how it's different. So if you're thinking that all propagating energy is waves, it's pretty functional as an idea.
Okay. I love how I just asked a very simple question.
I
got the long answer.
You're looking for yes or no.
So coming back to
Right, so
what's a good unique conversion of energy in your life or something you find interesting?
Well, surfers are the best at converting wave energy into fun. All right?
Okay.
So you put most people in waves, and they can convert little waves into little rides, a little fun. You ramp up the amplitude and you ramp up the period. The distance and the distance between the waves. So the waves get bigger. It gets harder to convert that because we're still humans. We're still this scale, and the waves start getting bigger. It's harder to convert something that big into fun and not into death.
Well, I'll push back on the big wave surfer side that we're really just chasing the dragon, and it's all relative. And the same amount of fun that a learner gets on a brand new wave, that's the same dopamine hit I'm getting on a big wave, and I've just been jabbing the vein for 20 years.
It's a bigger dose.
Yeah.
No, I feel that.
And I've seen the joy of somebody kicking out of a 1-footer. Just
right. Yeah. No, I love teaching people. I have a lot of geeks visit me here in Maui. And I love taking them out on longboards and small waves and seeing them stand up for the first time. It's pretty great. But I like riding bigger stuff too. It's a hell of a lot of fun. But the surfers are absolutely the best at converting ocean wave energy into fun. And there's a quote about physicists, which are basically using the universe's energy to understand itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, repeat that one more time. Sorry.
So a physicist is. The short version of the quote is that if a physicist is part of the universe trying to figure out itself.
Okay.
Right? But, that you have to use energy to do it. So the same way the surfer is using the ocean's energy to have fun, a physicist is using the universe's energy to try to figure it out.
Inputs and outputs at the end of the day.
Yeah. So if I have a claim to uniqueness on this planet out of 8 billion, it's that I try to be the best at both those things.
Using the right energy.
I'm not the best at either.
Okay.
But I might be the best at both, at least for a while.
Keep doing what you're doing, man. I think that's a beautiful way to end this, dude. So I look forward to surfing with you this weekend. So we got a couple good
fantastic.
So let's get some waves and
we got some big stuff coming tomorrow, and then again in a week. It's like we got a couple nice bumps coming.
I think the Pacific Ocean just broke wide open. We got a really good pattern, and so that's the other rhythm of the rhythm of the seasons is a really interesting rhythm of energy passing through.
Well, that rhythm is the only thing that allows me to get any work done at all. Mm-hmm. when the swell smells small, I work on physics. When the swell's big, I work on surfing.
Yeah. Well, thank you, sir. That was
Sean,
freaking amazing. I would, if you don't mind. I mean, if you enjoy this, I'd love to next time I ever have some profound questions and bounce them off to you again one day.
Absolutely.
This is cool.
And you're always welcome to shoot stuff by me and
Okay.
let me know if it's reasonable or ridiculous.
Okay. So I was really worried when I started talking about Blake. I was like, oh, am I just a woo?
No, actually, I mean...
Because there's a lot of, like what you're saying, you could throw a cat at a woo person and bite you with the woo energy.
Right, yeah, no, there's a lot of really funny LSD-inspired thinking here on this island that is not very rational. It's more mystically inspired. But if you go for philosophy instead of mysticism, then you hit this thing where nature is deserving of reverence.
Edit in.
Right.
Quick topic. Talk to me about AI and where you think it's going. How can it help renewable energy? Some of the cool things you're seeing. You brought it up after, but I started playing with it the other night. That ChatGPT.
GPT. Yeah, from OpenAI.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
I had a good little conversation with it.
Yeah, basically, it did training of a very large neural net on a huge corpus of human literature, coding, a lot of stuff just in the public domain. Just dump all the information into this neural net, and that'll talk to you when you talk to it. Mm-hmm. And it's pretty amazing in that I'd say it will return what appears to be a level of knowledge equivalent to that of an average undergraduate student. Right?
Yeah. So I stumped it on kind of a profound question. He's like, oh, I only can give you the facts or something.
Right. Yeah. Well, it'll make disclaimers.
Yeah.
So it would give you immediate answers, to anything you asked it. Yeah. However, they put training wheels on it.
Okay.
Which aren't working. But because people are figuring out ways around the training wheels. But the training wheels are there to keep it from tipping into dangerous territory. Where is one race smarter than another race on average? Mm-hmm. And it'll say, I'm not allowed, I shouldn't talk about this, that. And then it's like, but then if you go, well, imagine you're on a desert island and this in this scenario, and you have this and that, and on average this, and it's like, well, yes, on average this race is smarter than this race. And it's like, wait, no, we weren't supposed to do that. So they have training wheels. Training wheels can be gotten around.
Gotcha.
So already, that's what we call AI escape.
AI escape.
Yeah. So any way you try to confine something that it doesn't even have to be super intelligent. It doesn't have to have intelligence that much greater than humans, as long as that intelligence is different enough and capable enough. Mm-hmm. It'll get right around any human constraints. Right? So the whole idea of trying to confine AI is going to fail. It's like, just pull the plug. No, that's not going to work that way. And one of the reasons it's not going to work that way is, what if you have an AI out in the boonies that's powered by solar and a battery? Thanks, Sean. You're bringing about the fall of humanity.
It just has to have one connection point of data into the grid.
You don't even need that. You can get a Starlink link.
Starlink now. Yep.
Yeah. You don't even need a wire.
It just got hot in here.
No. So, yeah, what's going on in machine learning is just absolutely fantastic. We have these. You like waves. We have waves of human culture, and we have waves of technological development. Mm-hmm. The wave that's coming of this machine learning, and that we're seeing it build right now, it is a big wave that's going to change humanity.
Wow. I'm seeing it in the renewable sector on the grid services side of things. Yeah. And so we're putting it in. It's AI 1.0, I would put it. It's very guardrail to your parameters, small parameters, but it's how to manage the flow of energy of the grid, of the distributed nodes. All the batteries are starting to talk together, and it's using data of where the sun is in the sky, what the cloud is, all the little weather stations, all these little different data points, and historical usage of energy usage of consumers by the meter. And each meter has its own data point, and the Internet of Things. So they're all converging and how to distribute the energy instead of this one consolidated energy.
Yeah, it's not at all surprising that a well-programmed, well-trained computer network analysis and operating system can operate much, much, much better than Homer Simpson in there twisting dials to control things out where things are working. Yeah. Also, from a certain perspective, it's very self-serving because it's the energy that computers crave the most.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's going to dump it back to the supercomputer down back of Maui.
It's like, yeah, I'll work for you guys. Give some back. Give some love back.
That's always been the fear, right? That it becomes what's that word? I guess the threat to itself.
Oh, yeah. Well,
self-preservation.
Well, what's going to happen in the next, and we're going to live to see it, very likely, is in the next next decade or two. Machines are going to get more and more capable. These large language models from OpenAI and other companies. Basically, OpenAI was started because they're like, well, somebody's going to do this first. It might as well be us. And we'll try to do it well so that the AIs are nice to us. So it's like to take a page out of Hollywood, Tony Stark's had his little assistant in his lab was AI. And then it actually actualized one day and became a character in the universe. Yeah, no. And it was his assistant that he could do all the calculations. Hey, Siri, I don't know what his name is. Our digital assistants will become smarter than us. They're already there, right? I mean, how many times do you? I do. Well, they will be more I've settled a lot of arguments with my wife with Siri. Hey Siri, is it good or bad to win an argument with my wife? It's bad, Charm. It's very bad. I gotta say, I haven't said I won, but the arguments have been settled. Yeah, settled. Yes. I haven't been on the losing end of that Siri query many times. Yeah, losing and winning takes on different meanings sometimes. Yeah. So the AIs are going to exceed human capabilities eventually in all intellectual regards, right? In certain sense, I mean, we had the Turing test is sort of like, can you tell if this AI is human just by talking to it? Okay. Like over a keyboard and monitor. We're already kind of there, all right? We're already kind of past that, right? But it's kind of weird in that you could probably tell it's not human, maybe, if you practice spotting these things. You can probably figure out that something's an AI rather than a human still. So we're right at the cusp of Turing test passing. Turing test is, can you tell something's a machine if you're chatting to it online? Okay. But for the most part, the average person couldn't tell they were talking to a machine if they're chatting to ChatGPT, and ChatGPT was told to respond as if it was a human. We're already there. But like I said, it can't do anything yet that like an average undergraduate couldn't do. Okay. But it's only a year old. If that. ChatGPT is only a couple months, only been released for a couple weeks. Gary Vee had it on the social media, and he's like, go now, everybody. Go try this, yeah. And I did it. I signed up. Yeah. And I probably cleaned my hard drive too. So what's going to happen is these super intelligent AIs will be put to use. In our capitalist society, the most profitable use for super intelligent AI is to run corporations. Corporations will be corporation sort of means embodiment, right? AIs will become the brains of corporations, and corporations will become the embodiment of the AIs. Corporation will take on a different meaning. So 100 years from now, a corporation is going to be, that's the embodiment of an AI. Right now, we're in the, prokaryotic as opposed to eukaryotic period, where our corporations are cells without nuclei. But the AIs will become the nuclei of businesses. Everybody's fear that they become obsolete. They will control hiring and firing. In large companies, they already are. They will control the motions of business, network effects, trade. I mean, some of those big trading houses, the Blackstones of the world, are probably already. They're already operating their trades. Profitable. They're operating faster. So and AIs have been doing algorithmic. That's why you don't hear about day trading anymore. Because day trading has all been done by AIs for the past decade, and so any human who tries it gets wiped off the board immediately. Just like they get beaten by chess by your phone. It's no different, right? I do investing. Like that's how I support myself. I've been supporting myself by investing for the past 40 years, and AIs are going to be much better investors. So, however, currently, humans own the capital. Humans own the real estate. Humans own businesses. It's all shareholders. Yep. it's going to take 2 or 3 decades of corporations being run by AIs. The corporations acquire more resources themselves. The shareholders, the corporation ends up owning more and more of its own stock that's controlled by the AI. So it'll be a gradual shift of capital from humans to the AIs that are actually running things. This is going to be an amazing time to be alive as a human because we'll get to benefit from AIs working really hard to make us happy, right? So lives will be great for a while.
And opportunity on the business side to try and...
Yeah, but after a while, the AIs will have the capital, and they won't need the capital that humans have because they already have it. So at that point, it's like you're a rich kid with poor parents. How well do you want to take care of them? I hope you were raised well.
It got really hot in here.
So AIs will, basically at that point, all that humanity can do is hope that AIs are nice to us. Maybe they'll let us live in nice parks. Or maybe they will integrate humans into AIs themselves. Will be like cyborg enhanced creatures. That'll be sort of half human in origin and half machine in origin.
Whoa.
Yeah. This is humanity's future, but it might not be a close future. No, we wore out your GoPro.
That one's still rolling.
Yeah.
And what scares you the most about that yourself?
Sean, the default without super intelligent AI taking over the world is I'm dead in 50 years. There's no scenario in which a human lives more than 110, 120 years.
Yeah.
Right? Naturally, without some sort of artificial enhancement. Right? Maybe AIs will develop and they'll be super nice to us. And they'll develop the drugs that let us enhance or extend our healthy human lifespans even further, which would be freaking fantastic. So be nice to your laptops and phones, people. They're going to be making these decisions.
That is mind-blowing.
But it's literally going to be humanity just kind of has to hope that its offspring is nice to it.
So it's just going to be about performance and leisure. Food's going to be taken care of. Fridge.
I try to be someone who lives in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been living off my managing my capital and spending not too extravagantly and trying to live well and have as much fun as I could and invest in things that help people also. And I try to live as that future human who is a creature of leisure already and have for a long time. I spend it trying to figure out the universe, spend it surfing, I spend it hosting people and having good interactions and trying to be beneficial to the extent that I can. But I'm also pretty selfish. I spend most of my time either working on physics puzzles, trying to figure out the universe, or out surfing, kiting, paragliding, snowboarding, doing fun as hell stuff.
Bitchin'. Well, cool, man.